You good? All right. Hey, everybody. I'm Alex DiPerna. This is Jedi Mind Tricks, People Skills for Security Pros. Before I get started, everybody's been quiet all day. It's 4 in the afternoon. Everybody's tired. I think we should just give a round of applause for the people that put on ANYCon, whether it's the crew or the organizers. Yeah, this is awesome. It's awesome to be here. It's awesome to, have this opportunity in upstate New York. I think we got a lot of cyber talent up here, and, this is really our conference here. So, yeah, thanks so much. Okay, so who's this guy? I have a background in electrical engineering, mobile and web application security. My favorite cert is Scuba, if that tells you anything about what I think of certs. I am Scuba certified. And I like Star Wars. So, the Star Wars theme. What's a Jedi? Jedi are basically knights from the Star Wars universe, right? And if you look at Darth Vader's helmet here, it's sort of based on, feudal Japan, samurai, that kind of thing. And if you think about it, we are really the knights of...
Hi, folks. I'm Geek here. Unfortunately, we had a technical difficulty with the live feed capture, and we have no audio or speaker movement until about the 3-minute, 55-second mark. Sorry for the inconvenience.
about a situation. When you do that, you do have increased power. Another good quote from John Maxwell there. Okay, so what about information security? You're sitting here saying, okay, great, leadership, whatever. You have to sell your ideas, like I said. That is how you will influence. That's the bottom line. That is what is going to make you powerful. So how do you sell an idea? Here we have Steve Jobs. He's really excited to be at IBM. He's pointing at it with a finger. I'm not sure which one. And basically, Steve Jobs figured this out a long, long time ago. And we're very lucky to, have had a person like that in our lifetime. And basically, it comes down to this. People don't buy what you do. They buy why you do it. So here's an example. If you hear from IBM, we make great computers. They're user-friendly, beautifully designed, and easy to use. Want to buy one? You're like, yeah, maybe. This sounds like a good computer. Now compare it to Apple's pitch for the same thing. With everything we do, we aim to challenge the status quo. We aim to think differently. Our products are user-friendly, beautifully designed, and easy to use. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Now, I don't know about you guys, but I want to buy the Apple computer based on that. You know, it's hitting the hacker psyche. You know, that's who we are. We challenge the status quo. We aim to think differently. You know, that's their marketing. But why does that work? The reason it works is because decisions are ultimately motivated from deep inside our brain. So in that computer in your head, there are different layers. You can think of a ring bus and a CPU, same idea. At the deepest, darkest recesses of your brain is where your emotional response and ultimately where your decision making comes from. That's your why. Your why might be different than somebody else's why. That's important because even if you have the same what, like IBM and Apple, your why might be very different. So, if you can affect someone on an emotional level, if you can connect with them in that way, it will help to influence their decision. Another factor is motivation. There's two kinds of motivation. As we looked at with those concentric circles on the last slide, there's extrinsic motivation about the what. So, in this case, if you think in terms of, you know, if I don't go to work, I get fired. And if I do go to work, I get paid. Like, that works okay, right? You know, like, those are the rails that sort of keep us going to work day after day. But it doesn't really motivate us. I don't know anybody in this room, or anywhere else for that matter, that if they stop getting paid would go and say, yep, I'm going to go to work in the morning. That's not going to happen, right? So, great leaders and great influencers know that you have to create personal interest, and that personal interest comes from the why. If you can do that, if you can foster personal interest, then someone will come back day after day, because they're not doing it for the money, and they're not doing it, you know, for those external reasons. They're doing it because they're interested. You see this all the time with hackers. We have to figure out how it works. We have to understand why it works that way. That's an intrinsic motivation. We're doing it just because we enjoy it. So, how I've broken down this talk is into sort of three sections. The Jedi mind tricks are coming, I promise. You need to prepare, you need to sell your idea, and you need to build consensus. Originally, I had titled this talk more around social engineering, but after having put the talk together and shared it with a few people, you know, I realized, yeah, these things work for social engineering, but 99% of the time, that's not what we're doing. You know, 99% of the time we're interacting with people on a day-to-day basis. So, yes, you can use these things to help with social engineering, but you can also use these things in your day-to-day just to make your life easier, at work and otherwise. So basically, the Jedi mind tricks, as I mentioned, they come down to little hacks that help us influence. So, preparing. This is all about that circle of control. What do you control? What can you do before you meet with someone? Know your audience. I put lots and lots of Star Wars memes in here because I know my audience. I love Star Wars. You guys love Star Wars. Try to make this fun, right? Do some recon. Know who you're speaking with. Know how they think. Know their why. Try and understand that. Try and understand where they're coming from. You can do that ahead of time. Now, you can't do this every time you have a conversation, but in general, I think it's very possible to, you know, get an idea. You can, you know, do some Google Foo. You can check LinkedIn. You can get an idea of who you're going to speak with. Prime the pump. Figure out what they like. Give a gift. Give a token of appreciation for no reason. Make friends with administrative assistants. These people are the gatekeepers to everyone that's important that you talk with, that you want to influence. If you get into a situation where people close to the people you want to influence, think you're a good person to talk to, that's helpful. If I say that, Dave Kennedy approves this message, automatically my credibility goes up because of that. If Dave Kennedy says Dave Kennedy approves this message, that much more so, right? Plan ahead. Know the rules of the game that you're, playing. You have to know what you want, and you have to know how far you're willing to go to get it. And you have to practice when you do this. And that requires planning. And that's just the way it is. You have to know, where you sit within the organization, where you sit within the situation, what it is you're hoping to accomplish. Control your appearance. Try to monitor how you're perceived, and that's not just like, I'm wearing a suit. That's like the cadence you talk with, the tone of voice. Even when you're on your way to a meeting, walking slowly, breathing, simple little things. People notice that stuff. Maybe subconsciously, but people notice that stuff. Security makes people nervous. When you meet with somebody who's not in security, you might not realize it, but they feel like they just got pulled over. Their stress levels go through the roof, and they shut down, and they get defensive. That's not what you want. Whether it's social engineering or otherwise, you want to foster a relationship where the only urgency is towards solving a problem, not with the relationship between you and the other party. All right, so we did everything we could. We did our homework. Now we got to sell our idea. How do we do that? Make a connection. Smile. It's not going to kill you. Use the person's name you're interacting with. People love to hear their name. They love it. And show genuine interest. When the other person's talking, nod your head. Be like, yeah, that's awesome. And also be authentic. People can tell when you're phoning it in. They can tell. So just be authentically you. Project confidence. Enthusiasm is absolutely contagious. If you believe in your idea or your product and you share that with other people, they are going to get excited about your idea or your product. That said, there's a fine line between enthusiasm, confidence, and maybe cockiness. So, one of the things you can do is ask for feedback along the way. You can say, hey, how am I doing? Say, hey, am I doing okay? Yeah, all right, see? He's engaged now. I pulled him out of a sea of people and focused on him. And now he's engaged. When you get into situations where, you're trying to get your idea across, it's often helpful to listen. And we'll get into that a little bit later. But the main thing is here, while you're doing your pitch, make sure you keep people engaged. So, own mistakes. Oftentimes, when you meet with people, it won't be the first time you met with them, or your predecessor met with them. And what can you do in that situation? They've already built up a wall. They're already defensive. What can you do in that situation? Ownership. That's the only thing you can do. That's it. You take responsibility. You say, you know what, you're right, and we're working to get better, and we want to move forward. And if you can do that, it disarms that defensiveness. They realize that, it's not you against them. Again, be respectful of everybody. This includes admins, people of lower rank than you, people that you might not see as significant to your topic. Be kind, be nice to people, because others will see that. And how I like to put this is be conscious of the platinum rule. Do unto others as they would have you do unto them. Now that's different than the golden rule we typically think about. Typically we think about, do unto others as I would have them do unto me. But it's not about you. It's not about you. It's about them. Maya Angelou has a great quote here. At the end of the day, people won't remember what you said or did. They will remember how you made them feel. Establish value. So I find one of the best ways to sell your idea is to figure out what the other person wants, and like we said before, why do they want it? Seek first to understand, then to be understood. That means listen. That means don't talk when they're talking. You can also prompt for more information. Just be quiet, after they seem to be done talking. Silence, it's awkward, right? You want to fill that space, you want to fill that gap in, and so they'll keep talking. They'll keep filling that space in for you, give you more information. Ask, and what else, in a genuine way. Don't fake it, don't phone it in. And also rephrase what they said. If they were particularly focused on a certain point or idea, if something really bothered them or they were really passionate about something, then you say it back to them. And in that way, they can tell that you listened. They can tell that you care about what they care about. Think win-win. This is an easy one, but it makes all the difference. When presenting a perspective, you don't say like, well, I think Metasploit's the best. Why can't we use Metasploit? It makes people defensive when you do that. Instead, you got to think about, okay, we're all on the same team. And I don't care if you're a consultant at a business. I don't care if, you work for a business and it's a different team in the business. Doesn't matter. You say, okay, well, we have a lot of different options, and I think we should use this one. What if we use this one? And in doing so, you make the other party part of the decision. And that's important because now they feel like they have a say. And another way to do that is to concede on trivial items. You know what you want because you did your homework earlier, right? You read about the trees if you're a stormtrooper. So, concede on some trivial stuff that doesn't matter. It's okay. It makes people feel like they're contributing. It's a good thing. Dispel F.U.D. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. This is a killer. I've had this happen to me more times than I can count. Yeah, exactly. Fear is pervasive in information security because we basically deal in insurance. That's what we are. We're insurance salesmen. We're saying if you do this, then you won't get hacked. It's insurance. So, everyone you're going to deal with basically has this irrational fear of the unknown. It's your job to make it rational. It's your job to identify the risk and make it a real thing that can be managed. How can you do that? Well, just be transparent. Don't use buzzwords. Don't do that. And, keep it simple security. And then give examples. Remember what I said earlier about Dave Kennedy and if he approves this message? If you have maybe a competing company and you say, oh, well, they're using Cobalt Strike and, their CISO loves it. Now all of a sudden you've motivated, hey, they're in our peer group. Gartner does this all the time with all different security products. But also, they feel like they're not the first ones taking that risk. They feel like, oh, well, this is okay to use that. And if you get really lucky and they don't like a competitor, for instance, now you can motivate some competition. They'll say, oh, yeah? Well, we're going to get 2 Cobalt Strikes. That'll show them. Avoid logical fallacies. Where possible, avoid illogical arguments. But also be careful to not criticize other people or the way they are thinking. You could just sort of ignore it if they're being illogical, or you can focus on the illogical part of the argument without criticizing the person. So an example is you're meeting with a stakeholder and they're using basic HTTP authentication, and you're like, don't do that. That can be brute force. And they say, but that's what we've always done. And you have to have the presence of mind in that situation to say, okay, but that doesn't mean that's the best way. That means that's the way we've done it so far. And don't be critical of the person or their idea. If you volunteer ideas that are too far outside of what they understand, they're going to have a hard time keeping up with where you're going. We deal with this stuff every day. And the average user and the average person, they don't understand our perspective and where we're coming from. So it's our job to bridge that gap. So finally, you've pitched your idea, you've listened to your audience, you've got to build consensus. Ask for help. I can't tell you how useful this technique is. If you meet with either a stakeholder or an executive, sometimes you get that personality where the person's like, I know the right thing to do, I know it. And they've already built up that wall. Especially if they're a more technical leader, you're going to have a hard time convincing them, even if you're right. Again, it's just a personal bias of that person. So a good way to disarm that is to ask for help. Say, here's what I think we should do, but honestly, I don't know about this part. What do you think? And the second that you stop telling and start asking, it disarms the conflict. No longer are they worried about territory or you telling them how to run their part of the business. Now they see, hey, here's an opportunity for me to help. People love to help. Can't say that enough. It's amazing what people will do if you ask. And like I said, this applies to social engineering as well, but it works just as well in the office. Stay positive. Sometimes, you get challenged and you're like, oof. You're like, I don't agree with that. If you start to get negative because you got challenged, it's just going to be an arms race and you're going to build up conflict with whoever you're interacting with. If you say, no, but wait, when our brains hear that, they automatically build a wall. They automatically start to tune out and say, nope, I'm not listening to anymore. What you can do, it's simple. It sounds ridiculous, but it works. And it works. You say, you've given your pitch, get the response, and they say, that's ridiculous, you should do this and this and that. You say, yes, and just keep going with what you were saying. The important thing is you find a way to say, okay. You have to find a way to say, okay. Remember, it rhymes. All right. So now, again, we're trying to come to some action here, right? We're trying to make this happen. We're trying to get to a decision and get something done. Sometimes we can't do that by telling people we have a great idea. Sometimes you have to allow your audience to be the hero, like Luke Skywalker here. In Star Wars, Luke is the hero, and he has guides along the way. He has Obi-Wan to help him. He has Yoda to help him. And those guides sort of point the hero in the right direction without doing it for them. And that's really our job as security. It's not to be the hero. It's to be the trusted guide. It's to point our audience in the right direction and say, here, if you do this, you'll save the company. And then, by the way, once they do it, give them credit. You don't care. You got what you wanted. Give them credit. This is also known as the IKEA effect. The IKEA effect basically says, if I build a chair myself, automatically I ascribe more value than if I bought the same chair. It's a psychological impact for things that we own. And what you're doing is you're leveraging that psychological effect by telling them the story and allowing your audience to participate. Another way to get the audience input without just speaking at them is to ask a question designed to provoke a response. So an example is, you're InfoSec professional. Hey, can we install network access control, so people can't just plug stuff into our network and pop shells? The stakeholder's going to say, no. That's going to disconnect all my printers, You're going to get that knee-jerk reaction. But maybe instead we could ask, in order to meet the needs of the business, we need your help in deciding between, NAC option 1 and NAC option 2. Which one do you like better? Which one do you think will be best? Oh, well, we like option 2 because it has a printer whitelist. And now, there you go. You got your yes. This works great with kids, by the way. Broccoli or carrots? Good cop, bad cop. Sometimes one person can't do all of these things. And in those situations, it's often better, like I said before, to plan ahead. And what you do is you take your buddy and, you say, all right, teammate, what we're going to do is we're going to take opposite sides of an issue. And what we mean by opposite here isn't really opposite. You're going to take the answer you want them to say yes to and one that's far more extreme and a pain, and those are the opposite sides. And, during the discussion, the person with the moderate opinion should support the audience in what they think. The person with the extreme opinion has to be way out there. And the reason they have to be way out there is that extremism provides what's called an anchoring bias. An anchoring bias, basically, we take the average of anything. Remember, we got little computers in our heads. So if you put a number way out here, now all of a sudden the average is somewhere in the middle. Now all of a sudden, the answer you wanted to be the right answer is more palatable. Compromise. No matter what, try to commit to a course of action. Document your decision and then revisit it later. It's important when you do this that you don't tell people that they were wrong or that, I told you so, you should know better, you should listen to me. People will know that they were wrong if their idea doesn't work. As long as you document the decision, you can return to it later and say, hey, well, what if we try this? And they're going to know that you were right, and now you're a trusted advisor. Now they're going to listen to you because they see that you were right. Look for a silver lining. Find the bright side. Sometimes it's better to lose a battle to win the war. Nobody's against you personally. They're just for themselves. And, sometimes, no matter what Jedi mind trick you pull, you lose. And that's okay. Because when you lose, you learn. So your only options are to win or to learn. There's no bad option here. And that's what I mean by a silver lining. I worked for a CISO who taught me about this. We had a situation with decryption, and I said, we really shouldn't be decrypting here. And I made my case, and I went, through, and eventually I got overruled by rank, by that boss. And I was mad because I knew I was right. And I said, that's not right. And the CISO took me aside and he said, hey, listen, you just saved the business $2 million. I said, what? He said, by allowing them to decrypt, you saved the business $2 million. You let them decrypt. It's all in how you look at it. So, in conclusion, use your newfound powers for good. And if any of this got you guys curious, if you want to apply it to social engineering, read How to Win Friends and Influence People, Start with Why, Getting to Yes, and The Go-Giver. Each of these books has some nugget of wisdom that I can't communicate directly to you that's better if you read it and try and apply it in your own life. And I really feel like there's a difference between reading something and doing something. So whenever you go read these things, whenever you try to get better, apply the knowledge afterwards. That's really what makes wisdom. Thanks very much. Anybody have any questions?
How many gigs have you burned up on Star Wars memes?
Too many.